Have you ever heard of the Black Pharaohs? It's a chapter of history that often gets overlooked, but it's one of the most fascinating periods in the ancient world. For nearly a century, kings from the south, from the powerful kingdom of Kush, ruled over the entire Nile Valley, from the heart of Africa all the way to the Mediterranean Sea. This wasn't just a brief invasion, it was a full-blown dynasty, Egypt's 25th dynasty, and it changed the course of history. So who were these Kushite rulers, and how did they manage to conquer one of the ancient world's greatest empires? Our story begins in the land of Nubia, located in what is today modern Sudan. For thousands of years, Nubia and Egypt had a complex relationship. They were trade partners, rivals, and sometimes one conquered the other. For a long time, Egypt had colonized Nubia, extracting its gold, soldiers, and resources. But by the 8th century BC, the tables were about to turn. Egypt, once the mighty unified empire that built the Great Pyramids, had fallen into a period of decline and division known as the Third Intermediate Period. The country was fractured, ruled by competing local chieftains and petty kings. The central authority of the pharaoh had all but vanished. It was a time of chaos and instability. Meanwhile, to the south, the kingdom of Kush was experiencing a renaissance. Centered around its capital, Napata, a powerful line of kings was consolidating its power, growing rich from trade, and fostering a unique culture that was deeply influenced by Egyptian traditions, yet distinctly Nubian. These Kushite kings saw themselves not as foreign conquerors, but as the true heirs to the pharaonic legacy. They worshipped many of the same gods as the Egyptians, particularly the great god Amun, whose main cult center was at Karnak in Thebes. They believed that Egypt had strayed from its traditional religious and cultural path, and they felt it was their sacred duty to restore order and piety to the land of the Nile. They saw themselves as unifiers, destined to bring Egypt back to its former glory. The first major move was made by a Kushite king named Kushite. Around 760 BC, he peacefully extended his influence north into Upper Egypt, having himself recognized as king in Thebes. It was a clever political maneuver, laying the groundwork for what was to come. But it was his son, Piye, who would complete the mission. Piye was a brilliant military strategist and a devout follower of Amun. He saw the quarreling rulers of northern Egypt as an affront to the gods. In approximately 728 BC, Piye launched a full-scale invasion of Egypt. He documented his campaign on a magnificent granite slab known as the Victory Stele. This stele tells the story from his perspective, describing how he sailed north with his army, systematically defeating the northern lords one by one. Piye's account portrays him as a righteous ruler, restoring divine order. After a successful campaign, he returned to his capital in Nubia, having united the two lands of Upper and Lower Egypt under his rule, just as the legendary pharaohs of old had done. He was now the undisputed ruler of an empire stretching over 1,500 miles along the Nile. The reign of Piye marked the official beginning of the 25th Dynasty. He and his successors, Shabaka, Shabitku, Taharka, and Tutankhamun, are known to history as the Black Pharaohs. They didn't try to impose Nubian culture on Egypt. Instead, they embraced and revitalized Egyptian traditions. They were passionate builders and restorers. They initiated a massive program of construction, repairing and expanding ancient temples that had fallen into disrepair, especially the great temple complexes of Karnak and Luxor in Thebes. They commissioned statues, reliefs, and monuments that blended classic Egyptian artistic styles with their own distinct Nubian features. One of the most remarkable aspects of their rule was the revival of pyramid building. While the Egyptians had stopped building pyramids for their pharaohs nearly 1,000 years earlier, the Kushite kings brought back this ancient tradition. However, they built their pyramids back in their Nubian homeland, at sites like El Kuru and Nuri. These pyramids were smaller and had much steeper sides than their Egyptian counterparts. creating a unique and stunning architectural legacy that can still be seen in Sudan today. They filled these tombs with treasures and were buried according to ancient pharaonic rites, underscoring their identity as true successors to Egypt's throne. Perhaps the most famous and powerful of the Black Pharaohs was Taharqa. His reign is mentioned in the Bible, where he is noted for confronting the powerful Assyrian Empire. Taharqa was a prolific builder, leaving his mark all across Egypt and Nubia. He erected grand colonnades in Karnak, built new temples, and fortified the kingdom. He ruled over a vast and prosperous empire during a golden age of the 25th Dynasty. For a time, it seemed as if the glory days of the new kingdom had returned. But this period of stability was not destined to last. The rising power of the Neo-Assyrian Empire in the Near East posed a grave threat. The Assyrians, with their brutal military and iron weapons, were expanding their empire westward. Inevitably, they clashed with Taharqa's kingdom over control of the Levant. The conflict was fierce. The Assyrians launched multiple invasions of Egypt, sacking major cities, including the great religious capital of Thebes. Despite valiant efforts by Taharqa and his successor, Tutankhamun, the Kushite rulers were ultimately unable to withstand the might of the Assyrian war machine. Around 656 BC, Tutankhamun was driven out of Egypt, forced to retreat south back to Nubia. This marked the end of the 25th Dynasty and the century of Kushite rule over Egypt. The Assyrians installed a native Egyptian puppet ruler, which would eventually lead to the start of a new period in Egyptian history. Though their reign over all of Egypt was relatively brief, the legacy of the Black Pharaohs is profound. They were not just conquerors, they were restorers, builders, and preservers of Egyptian culture at a time when it was at risk of disappearing. They reunited a fractured country and ushered in a period of artistic and architectural revival. Their story challenges our modern perceptions of ancient Egypt, reminding us that it was an African civilization with deep and complex connections to the cultures to its south. They proved that power, culture, and civilization flowed both ways along the Nile. The Black Pharaohs were not an anomaly. They were an integral part of the long, epic story of ancient Egypt. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. It is a powerful reminder that history is full of incredible stories that are just waiting to be rediscovered. What do you find most fascinating about the 25th Dynasty? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more deep dives into the forgotten corners of history. See you next time.